And we're here with Conor Ryan. Conor, what is up?
Evan, I'm doing well. How you doing?
Doing great. Doing great. Back from vacation. Nice fun week in the Cape. On top of that, Cale Makar is now a Stanley Cup champion and a Conn Smythe winner. So that just capped everything off perfectly. So excited for him. So great to see. Not surprised in the least. 3 years in, already a Cup champ, Norris Trophy guy, Conn Smythe, Calder. I mean, geez. It's interesting. The Cale Makar stuff, we have a lot to get to today's show. So I'm going off the script a little bit here. Because as people know, we have everything scripted. Every word is scripted. We have a full script.
I have a teleprompter actually right in front of me. So not to unveil the podcast and making magic, but
how the sausage gets made.
Exactly. Yeah.
Sometimes you can see the words scrolling through your eyes.
Yes, exactly.
Reflecting off of it. But it's interesting, a lot of stuff gets talked about with the Norris, Charlie McAvoy, Adam Fox. Obviously, Cale is the number one guy right now. Roman Josi, Victor Hedman. Do you see a lot of people kind of say, it's Cale Makar's for the next, bunch of years. I feel like that's not true. He'll always be in the mix, but I think voters like to have some differences. I feel like it's not going to be him for the next 6 straight years. I hope I'm wrong on that, but I think it's going to fluctuate a bit.
Yeah, I imagine a little bit. I think voter fatigue obviously always plays into that. If not, it would be, you can make the argument that be like LeBron James every year for MVP, right? I think it kind of depends on the situation with the player.
McDavid.
Yeah, exactly. With McDavid. Yeah, exactly. So it kind of depends on the situation with the team, a player. There could be also very much a case where I could totally see Makar winning the Hart instead and be like, all right, we'll give the Norris that's with the year McAvoy will finally win. It'll be Makar has 110 points or something like that. McAvoy has 65, but his underlying numbers are great and he'll get the nod, something like that. So that's kind of how I view it. But yeah, I don't think Makar will win, Norris for the next 6+ years, but I think he's going to win at least a couple more, I think, over the stretch. I think much to the chagrin of the rest of the NHL, I think he's kind of just getting started. That guy, I think his ceiling's a lot higher than what we've already seen so far, which is terrifying.
Which is wild that's just only going to get better. And he's young, and the way he moves and everything is just terrific. Anyways, lots of Bruins news to discuss. We are Bruins beat. We're not UMass beat or Avalanche beat. We are Bruins beat. So we do have to discuss these things. A lot of pieces of news have come out since the end of last week. We'll go piece by piece, and then we'll kind of dissect what it all means. So the first piece of news, which was first, I believe it was, I'm going between Sweeney and Bergeron was the first.
Bergeron was the first, yeah.
So Joe McDonald reported that he's hearing Patrice Bergeron has decided to return, likely on a 1-year deal with the Bruins. Steve Conroy had then said that Bergeron's on vacation, expects to return, meeting with Sweeney this week, the current week that we are in. So Bergeron's back. A little bit surprising, considering all the stuff we'd heard for the past bunch of weeks, the direction the team was headed, the injuries. We kind of said, does he really want to return to this? But now you've got your 1C. You've got your 1C. You at least have that going into next season, which is really the first bit of positive Bruins news Bruins fans have had this off season. They only have about 2.5 million in cap space. Yeah. So you are going to have to get creative with how you re-sign Bergeron. Do you deal off other salary? What do you think they have to do with that? Because we know what Bergeron's impact on the ice will be. What about when it comes to the wallet?
Yeah, I think that's going to be the biggest issue is, you see Bergeron coming back, pretty much now that was the biggest domino, right? We could talk about who the coach is going to be, all that stuff. With Bergeron coming back, that they're at least going to try to run it back. So if you want to be competitive, got to clear up some cap space, right? Not only to fit in Bergeron's contract, which who knows if it's going to be a bargain deal, whether it's going to be incentive laden, where maybe you can push some of those bonuses into next year. But even if that's the case, let's say it's $2 million in baseline salary and a couple more million in stuff that you can put into overages next year. Just running it back with this current roster with a 37-year-old Bergeron, not really going to move the needle, right? You need to add to this team, whether that is getting another 2C, and whether that's David Krejci, whether it's freeing up cap space and throwing money at a guy like Nazem Kadri, trading for a guy, anything like that. You can't run back with the same exact core, the same roster that was failed by the same issues that have hurt this team in the past, right? With secondary scoring, maybe needing more, sturdier personnel on the blue line, all that stuff. This roster has pieces to build around that they'll be at the very least competitive, especially when guys are healthy. But if you're making that call to run it back with this core, I don't know. You look at that Stanley Cup final, you look at like Colorado and Tampa Bay played, and you put like just the Bruins in there, like you replace the Lightning with the Bruins, would not be fun, especially when you look at that roster and where it'd be next year if the only change you can really make is Bergeron. So whether that's trading guys like Craig Smith or Eric Haller, buying out Nick Foligno or moving Mike Riley, you're going to have to subtract from this current NHL roster just to free up cap space, which one is a necessity. And two, if that's the case and you're moving out NHL talent, you better be adding capable talent back, or you desperately need some of these younger, cheap players to hit on kind of the minutes that they're going to get.
It's like that meme where the soldiers are all lined up against the wall, and then there's the clown.
The clown.
Like the Bruins would be the clown, and like with the Avalanche and,
yes.
the Lightning in there, which is so out of place. But you're 100% right. Like you have to free up space, because as we get to, not only do we think that they're kind of, with the lineup right now, they're headed to be a middle of the pack team. The moves they're making front office wise and what they're looking to do at the head coaching position also indicate that this is going to, and we're going to kind of get to this later on more in depth, but this is a middle of the pack team. And it's hard to move away from that because you don't have a ton of cap space. That's why I think as the weeks went on with Bergeron, people kind of being like, well, Bergeron might not return. I think a lot of people came around to the fact that, like, if they stink this year and rebuild and do it quick, then it might be worth it. And I think now that he's coming back, it's like, oh, great, Bergeron's awesome. Yay. But for the rest of the team, it's like, I don't know, like, you're still where you're at. You're just delaying the inevitable where you're going to have to do this at some point. Now, Bergeron wants to come back, like, take him. Obviously you take him. You don't like say no to Patrice Bergeron, but I don't know what other they're gonna have to get creative when it comes to filling out the roster and changing it away from the problems that they've had in the past. And it looks like finally the guy who's running the show in the front office will be getting his extension. It was reported a few days after the Bergeron thing by Joey Mack again. Bruins and Don Sweeney have finalized the GM's contract extension, which we've been waiting to hear for quite a while, almost to the point where we're kind of thinking, is there a chance? Are they going to give him the axe too? Like, it's like that. I think I've made this joke before, but it's like in The Dark Knight when they're doing the bank robbery and everybody shoots the next person. Yeah. So it's just like, it's Cassidy, Sweeney shoots Cassidy, runs downstairs, Neely shoots him, and it just continues on.
It's like the elevator scene in The Departed.
Yes. Yes, that too. And I just look at the Sweeney thing and I just think, okay. Like, no one's surprised by it.
No,
because we've known about this for a while. We've talked at length about why it's not the right move, about how they probably should have moved on from Sweeney a while ago. But now you're doing it. And I don't know if people really have the confidence that he's the guy who can take this lineup that is kind of cap constrained and turn this into a winner or retool to become a winner in like 2 to 3 years. I don't think people really see that.
Yeah. And I think, as you said before, to really put this team over the top and to move the needle, it's going to require your GM to be very, very creative this offseason, right? It's not like last year where this was a team that had a disappointing exit against the Islanders. That was a team that I think a lot of people thought could go on a deep run. So you go into that year, that offseason, got a whole bunch of cap space, and like, all right, we can really add to this roster, get creative, and didn't move the needle, did it? Like, they kind of allocated a lot of that cap space into guys that either need to be moved now or didn't do nearly enough to impact this roster. And now you're in an even tougher spot where guys are a year older. You've got Marchand and McAvoy and Grzelcyk who are going to be on the shelf. Again, Bergeron still should be a legit top 6 center, a top, first line center, but still you need more help there. Yeah, you need him to be, but you still need more help along the way. So whether that's, again, subtracting guys from the NHL roster, or, what this team desperately needs is one of those kind of a situation what Colorado did in the past, right? Where it's either signing guys on value deals who end up being fantastic, or it's, fleecing a team in a trade where it's, you see it from all these teams that accelerate or take another step in the right direction, whether it's like the the Zibanejad trade with New York, or you look at like how like Colorado had, got Devon Tays for what was essentially 2 second-round picks, Kadri trade. Like all these teams have accelerated or taken a big step forward off of being creative, identifying guys that they can target, that they can add to this roster. And that's what you're gonna have to do if you're the Bruins. It can't just be spending away into contention. You tried doing that last year, it did not work out, and now you don't have any fiscal flexibility to do that. So it's going to require Don Sweeney to be, trying to hit a home run with a couple of moves, right? I don't think even if, let's say you free up a whole bunch of cap space, you trade Craig Smith and Mike Riley and all these guys, and then you just sign Kadri. That's great. Like you got a 1 seed and a 2 seed, but you still need scoring depth, right? Like, it's whether that's finding guys with value, like a Mason Marchman or something like that, or other guys that, that can impact this roster that aren't going to require you to allocate $5 million, $6 million in addition to whatever, let's say a guy like Kadri will cost you. It's going to require Don Sweeney and his staff to do a pretty deep dive and really kind of get creative here. And have we seen that in the past? Like, I think the last time we saw like Don Sweeney get super creative was when, he added John Moore's contract to the Lindholm deal. We were like, they got money to add a forward. Good forward-thinking move. What's another domino? And nothing happened. So a little concerning because, again, it's not nearly as easy. It's tough in and of itself to build a contender, but when you look at kind of the parameters and the restrictions in place with this team right now, just in terms of their cap space, makes it that much tougher.
See, I have a weird feeling. There's one thing the Bruins prospect pool has in droves, and that is third and fourth line talent. And I think ultimately, and maybe this is the direction they should have went last year, but ultimately, I think they are going to look at this year and say, we're going to put Oscar Steen down there. We're going to put Mark McLaughlin. We're going to do youth movement, so to speak, Trent Frederick in the bottom 6. Now, that would require buying out Nick Foligno and, maybe dealing Thomas Nosek and things like that. But I think that's ultimately what's going to end up happening. There is reports from Steve Conroy late last week. He said hearing David Quinn was scheduled to meet with Bruins ownership yesterday. He said this on the 26th. Not sure if any other candidates advanced that far. So seems like David Quinn is the favorite to be the next head coach of the Bruins. Again, at the time of recording, this is not confirmed. He is not officially the head coach. Did something just drop, Connor? I hope nothing. No news.
No, I'm just thinking of the fact that last week for Poke the Bear, I did a solo pod where it was like, I let off in the first 10 minutes of it. We're like, well, it's a solo pod. Evan's, soaking up the sun out in the Cape, but good thing nothing's going on. So we have nothing. Let's just do a mailbag and we'll just sort through everything. And then later that day, it was when the Bergeron news came out. And I was like,
yes,
shit. So no, there's no news report yet. We'll see what happens when this podcast finally drops. But as of right now, we are good, Evan.
Hoping that it stays the same just for the podcast sake. As you listeners know, we struggle a lot when news comes out and we're like, shoot, do we just record a whole new episode? Obviously, you guys know that happened a few weeks ago with the Cassidy news. Anyways, David Quinn is the favorite. Now, it's funny. This kind of sums up this episode in the sense that, for a while we've said that we don't know what direction the Bruins are going in. When I look at this direction, right, Sweeney at the helm, Bergeron back, David Quinn as head coach, I just go, cool. I don't know. Like they're a middle of the pack team that they are not cup contenders. We've said this in the East. I don't see any other team that wasn't in the playoff race this year, except maybe Philadelphia, that unseats them in the wild card. So I think they are somewhat of a safe-ish bet to be a wild card team again, given the roster, given that, they get hot in the second half. Obviously, they'll have a new coach this year, so maybe they won't. But I look at David Quinn and I kind of see the embodiment of it, right? Solid coach, not an upgrade over Cassidy on paper, at least. I mean, nothing really hints at that. The only maybe advantage he has is I know in New York, he was fairly solid with younger players. It was more the vets kind of lost the room, that sort of thing, which is kind of concerning coming into this situation. But I just look at that and I go, that's not really an upgrade, but it's not terrible. You didn't go out and hire like Dave Lewis, right? Like Quinn's fine, whatever. But I mean, you look at even like Quinn in 2020, 2021 with the Rangers, like this, a very similar roster to the one that went to the Eastern Conference Final this year, went 27 and 23 with him. They missed out on the playoffs. And I just look at those things and I go, how do you get excited about that if you're a Bruins fan? How do you feel confidence in this? Again, the direction is just kind of, let's run it back again. And I think that annoys people, and that doesn't really progress you at all. It gets you playoff ticket sales, which, like, yay, another first round exit. Woo. But I just don't see the benefit of that in the long term, or quite honestly, even the short term.
Yeah. It's kind of the same with like Bergeron coming back to this team and, you know, making any other moves. It doesn't really move the needle, right? I think in terms of what you're looking for, and sure, Bergeron coming back and them wanting to try to run it back. They're trying to contend. That's the goal of this season. But that being said, if you're going into this kind of new stage in terms of, sure, you still have Bergeron, but you're trying to incorporate younger players, you're probably going to have to uproot some of this supporting cast next year just in order to tinker with that roster. Why not go with, again, a younger coach that, one, you'll be able to work better with the younger players, and two, at least offers a fresher voice than a guy who's, you know, I'm not saying Quinn's bounced around the NHL because it's only had one head coaching job, but he's not a guy that necessarily, as you said, excites a fan base or a completely fresh new voice like a guy such as Spencer Carberry or Jeff Halpern or even like Jay Leach, who I think people are like, younger guy, connects with younger players, sure, but he's still been in the organization for a while. But I still think that's even different than maybe a guy like Quinn, where, yeah, it's one of those ones where if you're already, you know, firing Bruce Cassidy and the whole emphasis is a new voice and a fresh start and trying to really shake things up, why not go for, again, maybe a guy who's less proven, but has a higher ceiling than someone like Quinn, who going to know what you're going to get. And like, could he be better than he was in New York? Sure. You know, guys do better with second chances. Look at Bruce Cassidy, who, again, paid his dues at a much longer rate.
I was going to say Cassidy had 10 years.
Yeah. He was in quite the bit of you know, stuck waiting for a new job to open up, but kind of paid his dues. But still, I think if you're the Bruins and you're trying to, you know, get that new voice and really kind of shake things up, I'd much rather go for, you know, a younger guy that, you know, you could hit a home run on, as opposed to someone like Quinn who, yeah, you know, maybe it'll work, maybe not. Like, different than Cassidy, sure, but I feel like rolling with Quinn with the same roster that you pretty much have right now doesn't really do anything for me. At the worst, it's you're pretty much bringing back the same roster with a worse coach, which I don't really know how that moves the needle, Evan.
No, it doesn't at all. And now Elliot Friedman had said on his 32 Thoughts podcast after Game 6 of the Cup final, he said that he was talking about the Lightning assistants interviewing for jobs, Jeff Halpern and Derek Lalonde. You've mentioned Halpern a ton in the past bunch of weeks. You've turned a lot of people onto that idea. And, you know, Friedman mentioned that, you know, the Bruins are going to do second round interviews this current week. They could interview those guys, but I don't think they're the overwhelming favorites. That was kind of the vibe he gave. Like, they might talk to them, but might not, you know, wouldn't surprise them, but it's, you know, it's not like overwhelming favorites or anything. The tough part is, you know, who also needs a new head coach right now? The Detroit Red Wings. And you know who runs the Detroit Red Wings? Stevie Y. And who do you think hired Lalonde and Jeff Halpern in Tampa Bay? Stevie Y. So that's a difficult thing that the Bruins are going to have to deal with. If they really wanted Halpern, why would he not go to Detroit with the mastermind who hired him back in Tampa, right? Like, so and again, that's not really the Bruins' fault. I can't sit here and like rag on the Bruins for that being the case. But that makes it harder to get a guy like that. Now, Carberry is an interesting one. And again, like I keep, and maybe this is me just in the moment type thing, but I think it would almost be more respectful or respectable, right? They fire Cassidy, bad decision, whatever, right? But then you say, you know what, we're going to shoot for the moon. We're going to shoot for a younger guy with a ton of potential, a Carberry, right? Carberry comes in, let's say he does terrible, right? Let's say he's awful. You almost have respect for the fact that they were like, you know what? They kind of went bold. They went like full balls to the wall on this. Quinn isn't that. Safe pick. And again, it doesn't seem like an upgrade at all. And again, he could come in here and coach them to the second place spot in the Atlantic. Like, that could happen. But I'm just saying, on paper, the way it looks, I don't really see that taking place. And with this, by the way, it's not like he's being handed a great roster either. He's handed a cap-constrained roster that has a boatload of injuries to open the season to key players, mixed with the fact that a lot of these guys are going to be leaving and have been leaving in recent years. So I don't look at this and go like, that's a really exciting opportunity. And he's not going to be exactly handed a great, deal of cards here. So I just look at the Quinn thing and I just kind of go, could have done a lot better with that hire. By the way, they have not hired him yet. Like if they hire someone else, we can sit here and be like, yeah, this was all for nothing in a sense, but it feels like he's the favorite. I don't know. You covered him. Did you cover him at BU at all?
I did. Yes.
Covered him for a year, right?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. And good.
You told me once. You told me once he actually got mad at you, punched you in the face, threw you on the ground. It was pretty graphic. I mean, it was a stupid question by you, but it was
dumb questioning. So it happens. But no, I mean, like when Quinn was
That's
there.
That's not true. It didn't happen.
Yes. When Quinn was there, though, I mean, good college coach, connected with the younger players. Obviously, I mean, Charlie McAvoy and Mac was like still kind of sing his praises. Charismatic guy. Like I feel like, probably be good for the media because he's a guy that will give you a good soundbite and it's good, talking. It's not like, wouldn't be Torts, but even then, like I feel like even Torts is better than I think the worst case scenario, which is just a very boring coach where it's just doesn't tell you the goalie and then it's nothing, the same cliched responses. So he's not that. Maybe that, maybe he's just a good interview. Who knows? But I think he does have value, but not, I think, for this current team in terms of what you're looking for, especially when I think you just look at, yes, this is a team that's still trying to win. It's still anchored by this veteran core that's been here for a decade. But if you're firing Bruce Cassidy and you're trying to really switch things up, why not, as you said, shoot for the moon for a younger guy that if it doesn't work out, you did your best. So like you went for it, right? As opposed to, this isn't like some team where it's like the Avalanche 2-3 years ago, where it's like, all right, put in a young coach and they're going to build towards it and they're probably going to win a cup in the next couple of years. Like this team that, you're trying to get the right pieces that fit. You're trying to find someone that brings a new voice that can really switch things up. And that's why I think you look at a guy like Carberry. Sure, everyone talks about he's 40. He's done a great job everywhere he's gone with working with younger players, but he also did pretty good working with a Toronto power play that has Austin Matthews, John Tavares, Morgan Riley, Nylander, Marner, all those guys worked with a pretty elite crew there and kind of completely switched that unit around and they bought into it and worked out pretty well for them. So it's not to say that Carberry is just a guy that you only should hire if you're trying to bring a youth movement in. It's one of those ones where Quinn would not surprise me, but I feel like if you've already made kind of that one drastic leap with firing Cassidy with this team, might as well, actually make that jump and try to get a younger coach that can really kind of switch things up here.
And again, I look at even the one thing I think you can prove with Quinn is it kind of supports what I said earlier about the fact that I foresee them looking at the bottom six this year and saying, we're going to try a lot of things, whether it be Frederick in there full time, Steen, McLaughlin, Studnicka. Like, I think it's going to be that. And I think they want, and Sweeney, because those are a lot of Sweeney's guys, wants Quinn in there to support those guys, because we all know that if Bruce Cassidy was given those as his lines, they would not have much room for error. They just wouldn't. Like, that was a common thing. I think Quinn that would be his thing. That would be Quinn's goal, is to fix those guys. I think Sweeney kind of expects him to quote unquote fix those guys into full-time NHLers. That doesn't maximize the window. And it also doesn't really maximize the future window either, because those guys don't have a high ceiling. Those guys are all fairly certain bottom six guys, which is fine, which is totally fine. But you don't center your decision-making for the team around that. You don't. And so that's the only benefit I can see of a Quinn administration coming in and doing those things, are just kind of impacting the younger guys in the bottom six. So I don't know. Who knows? I would assume we'll hear more this week about the head coaching search, probably. Maybe the general manager as well. Bergeron will probably get announced later in the week, I would imagine.
I would hope so. I'm going on vacation next week, Evan, so I'm quite nervous, and I'm seeing just days and days of news that I know is going to happen, and it's not getting announced yet. So I agree. I hope it's later this week. We get some actual clarity, Evan.
Yes. Well, see, the issue was I was out on vacation, and I would be at the beach, and I would be away from my phone for 45 minutes, 2 hours at a time. And I'd be thinking to myself, the thought would pop in my head, and I'd be like, I hope they haven't done anything. I really hope that nothing's dropped. I hope there's nothing that has come out, because I would.
Got a 4.5-hour flight on Monday. And I know last time I took a flight on vacation, I was going to Las Vegas last year. In the middle of the flight, Kevin Miller retired and Brandon Carlo signed the contract extension within like 40 minutes of each other, which was dastardly. So I'll do my like usual tweet where I'll tweet from like looking out the airplane window being like, hey guys, like heads up. And then everyone will know that news is about to break. So
yes. You're the point man on that. You kind of get the ball rolling. The dominoes go into effect once you go. Happy to play a pod. In the air. Once you're in the air. Anyways, Conor, what can the people look forward to from you over at Boston Sports Journal?
Yeah, we're going to have coverage as soon as this actual news drops. Hopefully this week we'll have you covered we'll have you covered every step of the way. Yeah, we'll do a podcast from the JetBlue flight.
Yes.
Just piss off everyone in the cabin.
Everyone just say fuck everyone on that flight.
Everyone's just going to listen to all of my ad reads. It would be great. But we'll have all the breakdowns of whatever, drops this week and in the coming weeks with coaching search, Bergeron, free agency, the drafts coming up. All that stuff will be over at BSJ. So please subscribe at bostonsportsjournal.com. Want to follow me on Twitter? You can do that at ConorRyan_93.
Go do all that. That's Conor Ryan. I'm Evan Marinofsky. You Bruins beat listeners, have a great rest of your week.